We are ready to get in the game. Please let me know. Oh my god. Okay, I could have. This is on me, guys. This is on me. I could have absolutely told them not to choose these colors. I don't think I made myself referee either, so I have to remember after the game to tell them, hey, maybe not like exactly the same colors. For the poor observers. In the top right, we do have Boanaan, and in the bottom left, we do have Azura playing out a best of 5. See some fans of Boanaan already entering into the chat. I wondered why I knew so confidently how to pronounce this name, and I realized upon some Googling that I've definitely heard this guy in context of some decent cheeses. Some renowned cheeses, actually. They made their way onto YouTube and have many, many views. And it is exactly as I expected. Glad I found the right person. Cannon Rush, Shenanigans, if you will. And it looks like, honestly, Azura actually already knows what is up here. If I can take a quick Google search and realize what the heck this guy does as a play style, then Azura certainly can as well. And perhaps they actually play each other quite a bit on ladder. But just a reminder, this is the first of 4 best of 5, so plenty of StarCraft action in case this best of ends up being lickety split. I was wondering what the heck was being attacked. We got a pylon already in the top left, pylon on the right. Gateway coming down to, I mean, possibly finish, actually. Besides also maybe some SimCity. He's like Diet Haas. I don't know if that's, yeah, well, I actually started to really feel like Haas was more of a mid-game all-inner than a cannon rusher lately. But this is a lot of pylons. I'm having difficulty tracking the amount of pylons because they are orange and yellow. But as far as I can tell, the orange pylons, Boanaan's pylons, are dying without producing anything. Cannon rush so far very much not a success. Not sure what to be done here at this point. As hey, the gateway finished, but it won't have time to actually produce a zealot. I mean, you could build a zealot and then build another pylon and then try and finish it, but then the gateway is also already at lower than halfway health. And a 4th probe finally dies as well. And well, unfortunately, Boanaan not going to get a lot of success from that cannon rush. Trying to move over into the next core at the very least, as the gateways did finish. You don't need to be powered to build into the next tech. So he's going to have some technology to work with. Does the Stargate or a Robo? We'll find out. The gateway will, of course, come down as well, and possibly more in the future. And I do mean possibly. Certainly, Boanaan will not be the first or only Protoss player to go into Warp Gateless PvP. It is going to be Warp Gate, though, so I assume some emphasis on gateways. You do need something in the early game, most of the time. And cannons might be able to work against some people on the ladder. Maybe not Azura, who is pretty decently high up and certainly knows his opponent as well, as evidenced by the wall off, if that wasn't clear. Sorry about that. When I said that he probably knows his opponent, I was talking about his wall off. He didn't actually wall off in a typical PvP fashion, which can be susceptible to cannon rushes. He just kind of like backed away, so there'd be a lot of surface area and not particularly clever areas for the cannons to be put down. You could also continue building backwards if need be, so on and so forth. So Boanaan actually going to go for Twilight Council, which I feel like only means one thing, which is a Dark Shrine. But how on the nose is that? All right, I feel like it's so on the nose he's punching Azura in the nose. You know what I mean? Like, like that probably won't do the trick. One base blink build might be fine if this little hit squad doesn't do a tremendous amount of damage. And so far, at least to keep up appearances, blink is still on the way. I dip in a shade back there, but there's a shield battery, so not too much damage going to be done. As the Zealot's just abandoned ship. Going back home, they actually are not around to help kill this pylon, which was slapped down by this little probie, who, you know, is a bit suspiciously placed, isn't it? Azura probably gonna pick up on why a probe was over there and maybe check. It would sometimes be difficult to send out your only units to go around checking as the PvP continues, because what if you miss an attack coming right at your face? But Azura did just get a bunch of scouting done. Still has scouting with this pylon and knows that the pylon did at least distract, so we do not have... Oh, okay, I was wondering what the heck was being shift-queued around. It is the Zealots being shift-queued around. Probably the best thing you can do with these guys. If they add into a defense later on, fantastic, but knowing what type of defense you need is also pretty fantastic. So knowing that this is, in fact, going to be a one-base Blink Stalker all-in. We do just have the emphasis on defense on the fronts. There's possibility for a warp in of a sentry, for instance, and then a hallucination. Boanaan could get into the main base. He is setting up for Nexus, actually. Yeah, Nexus is coming down, so all in's not quite the right word, but as far as needing to do damage, that absolutely is the case. Like, this needs to do damage. Having Blink so you can control the map is only going to get you so far if their Nexus is basically a Nexus ahead. Missing about 15 seconds, but still, it's basically an entire Nexus ahead. Immortals are also damn fine at defending against those Blink Stalkers. If they get out-positioned is the only problem, but we even have a probe kind of preparing for that potential. A Zealot gets back into the main base. That was the one on the left side, I suppose, to get even further scouting done, and it's got free scouting. It's free real estate, it's free scouting. Nothing's actually being warped in to defend, as Boanaan is just choosing not to, actually. I feel like they do have cooldown. They did build a sentry, by the way. Hallucination coming on the right side. Not what I expected, though. I mean, you can still get high ground vision and try to attack into this, but why would you? 3 Immortals, 2 shield batteries? I don't think it's going to work. And Boanaan is definitely moving away from the attack, really banking up resources just for probes. Robo, you know, adding on technology. And then possibly even more technology, such as a forge or economy. As, again, the emphasis not on army production anymore, which Azura probably has already picked up on. There's a couple of pylons go down. It's a little annoying, but not a big deal. But he's probably picked up on the fact that this is moving on. All right, he saw the Nexus, and he's seen, I think, a similar number of stalkers at the front of his base, as well as warping in. So that kind of gives you a good idea as to where they're headed. They're not warping in. They must be saving resources for something else. What are they saving resources for? Pro production, +1, and now we see that the intention is to go into, I guess, disruptors. You know, usually I'd say that very matter-of-factly, but you never know with someone who opened up with the cannon rush. Which, by the way, the cannon rush did fail, but clearly Boanaan is playing a control game PvP right now and is actually doing a pretty fine job of it. So basically always putting the pressure, putting the onus on your opponent to do something, and when basically they can't because, hey, in this instance, they have like a slow army that's going to be bad about moving across the map. Be very, very cautious about it. Then you can do a lot with that. You can actually take that time that they're waiting to get into a bigger army, actually moving out, and then actually getting across the map. You can use that time to possibly fit in your own economy and your own superior technology as well. Because Blink Stalker Immortal, when on the other side of the map, is going to look pretty freaking good. Disruptors are also fantastic, assuming they actually get a shot. And this is an army that is still not, I guess, without support of the Immortals. You don't just want to get rid of them. They will have Blink Stalkers eventually. Azura is going to be able to dodge away from the Disruptor, but only if he knows it's on the way. I know there's Observer somewhere. The Observer is in Boanaan's main base, and it did scout the Robotics Bay, which really only means one thing again. I just was too scared of Boanaan's potential craziness. But it seems like besides a cannon rush, this is actually just fine PvP. Still a little unique. 2-base Disruptor after all, not too common. But I would say it's just fine, almost typical PvP. Again, more of the control factor over the slower building Protoss player. Kind of almost, kind of actually what we have in the TVT as well. If you're more familiar with that matchup, we sometimes have Beyond go into nothing but drops and 8 racks and whatnot. And then we have Maru going into nothing but technology, right? It's kind of the same deal here. We have Azura with a more powerful but slower building army who did not control the map. And maybe could have fallen behind the third Nexus if that was Boanaan's plan. But of course, Boanaan put a lot of the resources into Disruptors. So Azura is making his way across the map with a solid army. And one that can dodge away from a Disruptor shot with the Stalkers, but nothing else. And the Stalkers are actually going to snipe one of the Disruptors. That still leaves 2 more. And even a blink forward there from Boanaan as he knew about this attack. He knew it was inevitable that it was going to come, and it was a matter of buying enough time to get to where he needs to be to actually defend. But unfortunately, every last Disruptor gets taken down. Here I was thinking that Azura would play it safe and blink away or split away from the Disruptors, but seeing the opportunities, that is the best possible outcome. Actually killing the Disruptors, taking no shots to the face. no repercussions really at all. It's not even just the Disruptors didn't shoot. The Stalkers of Boanaan also are not really contributing much to the fights. It'd be a little different if Azura was blinking into like 20 charge lots, and then it's just game over, man. But Stalker v Stalker, Boanaan might have this upgrade, but does he have the numbers to beat back not just the Stalkers of Azura, but oh my god, he shot out the wrong Disruptor. But also the Immortals. 3 Immortals still well and good. 2 sentries as well out of those beautiful force fields on the ramp. And the Disruptor was a little too keen on trying to save the day. Almost tripped, fell over, and then threw hot coal on every last stalker there. That would have been rather unpleasant. This Disruptor is also looking a bit snipeable. Actually, no longer. Azura not pushing with the main army, perhaps fearing that the attempts to break into Boanaan's natural would result in an overextension and a dead army. So this is probably the wiser thing to do. But if you are going to only have your stalkers on the front line, that does mean there's a little more to be said about that dynamic of blinking into your opponent's army, right? Before, when Azura blinked into the army, he had the backbone of perhaps 3 Immortals and a Guardian Shield. But now, Stalker v Stalker, the numbers are quite similar. You blink in, put your entire shot on a Disruptor, you're going to be taking a lot of damage from the opponent's Stalkers, assuming they have a decent amount, and they do. Boanaan actually now even getting a decent amount of Disruptors, which, that is the downside, all right? Like, Azura might have been correct. Breaking up into the natural is pretty difficult. Breaking into 2-base Protoss still remains difficult. You usually just want to starve them out in Legacy of the Void. So he backs away, is comfortable in his own 3 bases, which that third was faster and obviously stayed alive, whereas Boanaan's did not. So it's been mining away for a little bit there. And then is going to be coming in as the, I guess, overwhelmer, getting as many gateway units as possible, and then is hoping to outperform the Disruptor player. So you continue taking bases, you warp in a lot of gateway units, and eventually 2 bases run out of cash. And if you're very successful at keeping them up a 4th base, well, obviously 3 bases run out of cash too. Boanaan has the chance to have a very cost-efficient army if the Disruptors actually hit, but unfortunately, these are not hitting yet, and there's damage being had from the DTs in the main base. 15 probes are already down. Disruptor being forced to use on like 1 DT and then dying anyway. That's not super ideal. And Azura is flipping the control game right back on him. GG Azura with a well-played game number 1. I don't think it was actually ever in trouble. I mean, I think the way that the follow-up works out for Boanaan, it can be a bit tricky. I'm sure lots of people have over-attacked or under-defended. I don't usually word the over-attack. It's not usually a phrase. But yeah, like they do the wrong thing at the wrong time, and then it looks like they've been played for a fool. But on the other hand, when you do kind of know the pace set by your weirder player opponent, and you're able to kind of control the waves a little bit, then, obviously the cannon rush doesn't look all that ideal for Boanaan. Will that be the series trend, or will something different happen, is the next question, as I realize I'm the one supposed to be building a lobby. We got Babylon coming up here. And it sounds like we might just have Forge openers every single time, but all right, red and orange is maybe okay. Yellow and orange is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay, I think that'll be fine. Anyways, so I get the feeling that it's going to be Forge openers possibly every single time, but the follow-ups can still be very different. I mean, even, just the fact that the cannon rush itself could be different. Even though Azura looked like it was easy peasy lemon squeezy, there's a build order to counter that. We know that cannon rushes can get kind of weird. Someone brought up Haas earlier, and we know that Haas once made it to a finals of a DreamHack and then took 2 games off of Serral. At least one of those was cannon rush, if not every single one of those games. And it's not because Serral doesn't know how to defend a cannon rush, it's because they all get kind of weird, and all it takes is one oops-a-daisy, and suddenly you are being snowballed upon, perhaps to the point of defeat, perhaps. In the bottom right, resident cannon rusher, it is Boanaan. In the top left, it is Azura. So again, Azura, he played that out well. He knew it was coming. He defended it. He then, again, played a kind of like conservative style, but one that was almost guaranteed to yield results. And Boanaan started off with Cannon Rush, which once again, starting off with the Cannon Rush. Kind of figured that with the pylon placement, but confirmation with the Forge. So, Azura doing a very similar thing, which is not bothering to wall off and open up vulnerabilities to even like a low ground cannon, which can start hitting your gateway, and it gets a little weird. We do have Boanaan trying to get that low ground pylon up and running. Second probe about to be here too. And like I said, it can still go different. I mean, you can know for a fact you're facing a cannon rusher, and you could watch even at like, 24 of their games, and even though you'll see a lot of their refinement in those games and a lot of the slight differences that they'll make choice-wise in those games, it's pretty hard to tell exactly what to do. It's easy to get flustered is the best way to put it, even for people who are extraordinarily good at this game. Although I would say Azura is once again handling this quite well. So the gateway's up nice and safe behind there. And then he actually managed to stop the probes from getting up into the main base. So a full wall will buy lots of time, because there are no cannons up next to that wall. It'd be a bit different if this cannon was finishing and then it's only a matter of time. Now, okay, it is still technically a matter of time. It's just, it's so long. It's so much longer to take Boanaan to actually get up into that main base. I like that this probe is going to start it, though. It's like, I got this. Don't even worry, cannon. This is going down. And as you can see, Azura went for a Forge response. Well, response is almost... It definitely wasn't slapped down upon immediate recognition of the cannon rush. It was slapped down as part of the wall, but nonetheless, a cannon addition for the defending Protoss, as Azura's cannon will finish up this pylon, still powering everything that is necessary to Protoss life. And I don't know what Boanaan's follow-up is up there. There you go. I got the answer as soon as I was about to question it. Stargate is on the way. There we go. So Stargate's proxy. Getting some 2020 vibes here. One Stalker, one Zealot. Fortunately, Stalker doesn't kill the Zealot particularly quickly. Oh, Azura really wanted to save that probe. Micro is almost good enough. Yeah. This is fun games. Very fun games. Resources lost technically favors the cannon rusher, but I think that's not the end-all be-all. Twilight Council's on the way. Clearly, Azura knows it is a Stargate. Stargate is seen. Void Ray is on the way. No surprise there. I mean, you'd be a little surprised this is happening in the year 2023, July 2023. You'd be a little surprised this is happening, but after a cannon rush, like, your surprise factor is halved, and then you see the low ground setup, and you're like, oh, okay, I know what this is. 100%. And only if the low ground had been entirely stopped would this have probably not been a choice. But very unlikely for Azura to try and stop the entire low ground setup. So going into a Twilight Council is going to eventually pay off. Pay off big time, actually. Eventually that blink finishes, and then you're going to be able to punish any of the Void Rays reaching over into your main base. So even if the shield battery technically still hits them, you'll get the Stalker one-shot. But you do need the amount of Stalkers to one-shot to really be the most effective with Blink. And that is something difficult to do, especially while you're trying to expand. Azura's scouting probe, I assume, got out there and actually came back over and has taken a hidden expansion, ensuring at least some form of... macro is not the right word. Economic viability. But again, this is all taking up space in the beginning of this PvP, and that space is being abused by the Void Rays. So perhaps what Azura is doing is going to pay off, not in the time that Blink finishes, which is like 20 seconds, but rather when he has Blink and a decent number of Stalkers. We're not there yet, but we're also not really at the best shield battery positioning either. Ah, the Void Ray! Jeez Louise! I did not I kind of gave Boanaan a little bit of credit there. I thought he was going to pull away with that weakened Void Ray, but he really wanted that cannon, and getting cannon down would have cost him the Void Ray. As it is, he saves the Void Ray, but then doesn't kill the cannon, and it all feels kind of useless. Just a very weak Void Ray. I was going to say the shield battery would love to be placed a little bit further up because you could see that Void Ray wasn't being healed from the get-go in those previous fights. Then actually gets, what was it, 2 or 3 shotted there, and this Void Ray also gets very, very injured. Despite a relatively low number of Stalkers, the fact that they are guaranteeing that damage and that whole damage as well, because that shield battery can't kick in fast enough, is, you know, a great stop to the snowball. Because that's what I was a little worried about, is the Void Ray snowballing, because this was such a low army start for Azura. And this is actually extraordinarily awkward. Having to blink back into your main base, the Void Rays are already prismatically aligned. All of the Stalkers in danger as the shield battery is out of juice. No backup shield battery either. Manages to save 2 very weak Stalkers, and that Void Ray prismatic alignment is now donezo. It's gone away with, and the blink forward, not gonna be able to kill that Void Ray. The pylon did go down. The shield battery is defunct. Another shield battery might be prudent anyway, regardless of this one being powered or not. And the fact that 3 Stalkers did manage to save their lives, okay, temporarily, they then just threw those away. That was actually 4 Stalkers killed, and 2 of them weren't even the weak ones. That's unfortunate. Actually, Azura kind of like managed to get his feet set after blinking up there, but it's back to a very disturbingly low number of Stalkers. 4 Void Rays to 6 Stalkers, and some of those Stalkers, again, super weak. I guess some of the Void Rays are also super weak, though. Boanaan really wants to do it here with the Void Rays. No transition at all coming in here. Shield Battery overcharge. Prismatically aligned takes care of that, and that is going to be a big problem for Azura, who might have let this snowball a little bit. Oh, I was looking to grab that last Void Ray. Shield battery is having just enough juice. Now, those forward shield batteries are now out of energy, so the Void Rays have to be extraordinarily careful about how much farther they go. Additionally, this has actually not been played around with so much as of yet, but you know, if the frontline structures do go down, these ones right here, okay, that's very important technology, no doubt about that. But if Azura actually rebuilds the 7X core, let's say over here, this guy is still on 2 bases. See, the Stalkers are out of position because they went to save the 2nd base. 36 probes. You can rebuild your Gateway 7X core at the very least. And if you think you need a Twilight Council, you could also rebuild that maybe. But then you have all of this room, literally all of this room, where there aren't shield batteries. So the Void Rays have to dive so far to do any further damage. So that's been one of the reasons that they've died. They have to go a little bit farther than their shield battery. Now they're going way past their shield battery, targeting all of the pylons, depowering every last gateway. However, that's a decent number of Stalkers on the field. 12 to 6 Void Rays, make that 5, make that 4 Void Rays. And pylon rebuilding isn't the worst thing here, as Azura is once again happily mining off of 2 bases. Boanaan definitely scouted this, yet is you know, can't really do anything about it. Oh, what the heck? Stalkers got across the field. Totally missed that one. Stalkers getting across the field, 2-shotting these probes. Shield Body overcharge to be popped back at home. I guess it wasn't doing anything else. I was using Chronos for the Stargate, I guess, but this is kind of funky because probes are about to kill these Stalkers. This is... Where's the yakety sax? Where's my soundboard? There's 1 Stalker, man. It's gonna kill the rest of these probes. And that's, I'm not even joking, that actually could be true if Azura is able to pay attention. And that is now the question. Can Azura pay attention as he races over to defend what we're gonna call the natural, but really isn't? Gateways are trying to be added on to avoid you losing all production in the main base yet again, but unfortunately, these might not be a factor. The Void Ray is gonna take out the Nexus. The Gateways are indeed going to be canceled. He certainly has enough minerals to replace a Nexus, and that's exactly what Azura is going to do. Top right Nexus is going to go down here. Void Rays return back to the main base. They know the Stalkers are out of position. Even if they were racing back home, they would once again be in that awkward little tussle, trying to get their own high ground. The Stalkers warped in defensively are going to get slaughtered. Recall is forced to be used. Azura realizes that that's not going so well. This potential base trade is not the ticket in. Has to do the recall, has to save the main base, and just leaves a couple of units actually continuing the attack, which I think is very fair. A couple of Zealots, all that is necessary. As, well, the 7X core, maybe not the biggest of deals. Eventually, they will add more damage. More time being bought as the Stalkers run away from the prismatic alignment. The Void Rays on the 3rd of it. Little less, almost gone. Can the Stalkers even combat them once the alignment's gone, however? That is now a real question. The Stalkers injured in lower numbers. Blink forward, grab the weak Void Ray. But these other Void Rays are rather healthy. Takes 2 shots, killed that other one. Another Void Ray's about to pop out as well. 5 Void Rays on the field to 9 Stalkers. Pylons going down once again. That's all of Azura's production. However, Boanaan is actually getting destroyed back at home. And we have probes coming for the charge, perhaps? Nope, that wasn't intentional. They are going to go back to mining. Probably the best thing they can do. If this is going to turn into a base trade, having a mining base is going to be pretty freaking amazing. Nexus goes down in the main. Azura also supply blocked thanks to that. Probe recall, not going to be possible. The Nexus is not completed. All of these probes are going to die. Boanaan, even if he kills all these probes, only leveling the playing field, isn't he? As the Void Rays come back home, you know, he's been offensive so long, I kind of forgot that he had the option to go for recall, too. Makes sense. He's Parados as well. He did have enough energy. So he saves his own Nexus. You would think maybe leaving his production a little defenseless, but 2 cannons and that many shield batteries, it would just frankly take so much time for the Stalkers to clean it up. And Azura wasn't going to go clean that up. He actually was trying to find the Void Rays perhaps in transit, heading over to his base. I was hoping to catch them, and they did catch, I think, 1 Void Ray. I think 1 more died, and then these actually now have no prismatic alignment. So that is something to be worried about for Boanaan, but frankly, 7 Void Rays, 7 Stalkers. I mean, the Void Rays win if they're actually all fighting. It's a bit different if the Stalkers can maneuver around, but I think Azura, ooh, might be a little frustrated about this one. This was certainly his game. And then just a couple of misplaced Stalkers, I would say, was really what ended up starting the snowball, allowing this kookiness to happen. And Boanaan might not have a Nexus as their base is being revealed, but we know where their base is. We know exactly where all the structures are. Azura does as well. And now Azura needs to take out not just the Void Rays, but also the structures, which is going to be pretty difficult. Oh, he blinks into the Void Rays. He didn't realize they were returning. Oh, now his Stalkers are trapped. Oh, no. The Void Rays actually canceling alignment, realizing that they can just pounce on these Stalkers. And that is, I think, it. That's it. This is such a frustrating loss. Azura certainly had this game. I would say it kind of got a little weird when the Stalkers had to blink up, but even then I thought it was okay. But then having to take another fight where he ended up losing so many of those Stalkers, it was right here in which he lost like 4 Stalkers. I think that was kind of the very important dip. You know, it sucks because you felt like you had so many backups to make a mistake like that. You had that Nexus building and your gateways were pumping out Stalkers pretty consistently. So you're like, well, I got to back up in case I screw up, right? And then you screw up, let's say, like 1.5 times. And at the right time, that's all it takes. So I think everyone in chat might be familiar with this feeling. It goes back to my earlier point, you know, the cannon rush itself might not even be what sets you on your weird path, your uncomfortable path. It's the follow-up as well that just is not comfortable. Just frankly, because it is such a fast attack, it's already, I think, inherently more uncomfortable than like a macro game. Add on the weirdness of it, and then, yeah. We got Ancient Cistern coming up next. Make sure his keyboard survived after that game. I would not be happy, but that is one of the tests of competition. It's how well you keep your cool. I've been reading up on chat too much, but hopefully all the sound, audio levels and stuff is all good. And the stream is enjoyed. No, wait. Okay. Yeah. So red-orange was already kind of... Red-orange was already like, it was also like a little like, not the best, but they went back to orange-yellow and I had to slap that, slap that hand away. All right, so now we're ready to go. Teal-orange, hopefully a good color combination. Maybe Cannon Rush should be considered standard play. Any other build should be considered greedy econ. This man seeing into the year 2032, obviously. In the top right of Ancient Cistern, we have Boanaan. In the bottom left, it is Azura. Like I said, frustrating game. One of the tests of Azura in this best of 5 is going to be how well he handles frustrating losses. And even frustrating wins, actually. At the end of a win, you can kind of decompress and say, okay, like, we're closer to victory here. We're closer to not having to deal with can rushes anymore. But still, 20-minute long game in which you were fairly certain you were supposed to win at 5 minutes, and then you keep making mistakes. That is a frustrating game example where you just you get to decompress afterwards, but you're still kind of like, I don't feel good. I don't like it. And then if you actually lose, well, we know how frustrating that is. This is now expected, guys. If you were more unfamiliar with Boanaan like I was, I did a quick search and I was like, oh, that's why I recognize the name. Okay, I gotcha. But if you were a little uncertain as to how this guy plays, I think it's pretty clear now. Cannon rush, and more cannon rushing. This forge is absolutely 100% down. Azura, I don't think he's really scouting to confirm the forge. He might be, though. I mean, you know, I don't think it's out of the realm's possibility for Boanaan to not cannon rush and do a little eco cheese or whatever you want to call it. Cheese thing a cheeser can do as macro. But also to have that probe out on the field for a second scout, third scout, or that hidden nexus like he tried in the last game. Oh, probe went down. There should be a backup probe. It is currently trying to escape the wrath of 2 teal probes. I believe in you, buddy. You got this. You got this. Actually, this probe might not have to get this. That cannon actually finishes up here. No! Okay, the probe definitely didn't do anything. I did not believe in him. Just kidding. Good thing I didn't bet any money. But that cannon finished. That cannon did finish. And with plenty of time, too, because it's not like this pylon was the only one powering it. So that is the start. That is the foot up that Boanaan is looking for with these cannon rushes. Should he not get them, he thinks about the backup plans. But with an attack set up like this, not just the cannon, but also the gateway pumping out a zealot, oh, there's some fun to be had for Boanaan, and no fun whatsoever for Azura, who is actually in some serious trouble. I think this is probably, frankly, you know, I don't know how else to put this, but this is one of the worst responses so far. Not getting the block on perhaps this full surround of structures. It might have been a death sentence. You know, if you block this pylon, there's a little bit more surface area. If you block both pylons, well, obviously there's no wall at all. There's no power. You block the gateway, so on and so forth. The surface area was very much needed for the probes to do their damage. Now cannons are attacking Azura's base, and Azura really has no choice but to try and mine foreign minerals and then expand elsewhere. Like nothing else will work. The Nexus is under fire. He cannot buy time, which is something that he was able to do in the previous 2 games. He was able to fall back if necessary. And now he can't do that. But I guess what you can do with the cannon so close to the Nexus is that you can't escape with your probes. So, you know, small victories. And like I said, it's just building up the foreign minerals, slap down that Nexus. Now, this would also be very apparent to Boanaan. Boanaan is not imagine anything different. What else would this be? It's another Nexus. But it's a Nexus that is about to have to restart completely on technology, and frankly, it's a bit of a Hail Mary Nexus. A Nexus response, if you call it that, is that... the Nexus response is actually kind of even, I would say, it was popular for a while. I remember seeing Showtime do it, and Showtime's definitely not a weird player. You know, it's a great example of a not weird player. And he went for a Nexus response. But I believe that's very much earlier on. You know, that's like the first thing you do, almost, if you can't stop the cannon rush. This was obviously a more, I tried. Okay, I failed. All right, let's try something else. Nah, just kidding. It's actually what happened. And perhaps that loss was related to the second game loss. I mean, it's not... I don't think anyone would blame Azura if he was kind of messed up a little bit because he was thinking about that last game. But now that puts him on his last life in this opening series, which with the first game, I think maybe a lot of us were a little worried, you know, like, oh, is Azura just going to read this guy like a book and then deal with it, no problem. But no, it's not the case. Now it's Azura who's absolutely having trouble. Fourth map will be Dragon Scales. And by the way, I have no strong opinion about what cannon rush is good at what map. I feel like Boanaan's going to do it no matter what. You might change the type of cannon rush, and that's something I haven't really talked about, but I am not the cannon rush expert, aficionado. That would be Fear Dragon, if I could just call him up real quick. and then boot him out, you know. But I think the cannon rush is going to happen wherever. You know, perhaps that's a cannon rush in the last game happens because you can reach that that angle with the wall off that he did, and it reaches the Nexus. Maybe on a different map, he would have prioritized the low ground to attack. But as far as I know, there's no extremely abusive cannon rush map, which there have been in previous map pools. In the bottom right, he is Boanaan. In the top left, it is Azura. And we have ourselves a classic battle of the straight and narrow. Doing it by the book. Trying to play out a decent, gentlemanly macro game. Well, that's, you know, PvP is only so macro. But you know what I mean. Not cannon rush versus the extreme cheeser, down in the dirt, mud wrestling cannon rusher. Into whatever. So I don't want to call this guy Boanaan the dirtiest mud wrestler ever, because I feel like that is reserved. That's a title reserved for people who don't just cannon rush, but they cannon rush into like a proxy Stargate into a DT rush. Those crazy people. Boanaan actually has displayed 3 different follow-ups. All right, now 2 of them have been extremely cheesy, but one of them was kind of macro. Kind of. It was a 1 base 4 gate and a 3 gate initially, but still. So more of the opening mud wrestle into perhaps a little bit more of fair play, but gentleman play. We have Azura once again going for the cannon rush response. This one is the actual response too, though. Or it's not even there. Response is still not the right word, actually. So when he got the Forge in game 2, he added the wall. So it's once again doing that. But it was after his gateway, right? And it was after he had, like, pushed the probes back down to the natural, I believe, that he would realize he got a chance to high ground wall. This one is literally just like, I know you're cannon rushing, so I'm going to defend cannon rush as well. And when the defensive cannon rush comes up, and there's not really much to do, generally this is more of a response. Again, this is something in which the player has gotten a gateway and realized they're being cannon rushed, goes for a forge, trying to build a cannon before the cannon rusher's cannon gets up in some place important. That's usually what happens. This is just, I know you're going to cannon rush because you're doing it every single time. The problem with Azura's build is that it doesn't give him any advantages. So, and this happens all the time in PvP, right? Because there's also instances of someone 3-gate robo pushing the player back on 1 base, and then that player also doing, you know, 3-gate robo, or maybe going into blink, but then it's the battle of like who can expand, who can take map control. You know, the fact that everyone's pushed onto 1 base really just equalizes it, doesn't it? So the worker count is even in favor of Boanaan, the cannon rusher. Azura is going into a Twilight Council, where Boanaan is clearly trying up that Stargate thing again, which is in a little bit of trouble. No, I mean, it's fine. It's seriously 1 Stalker, about to be 2. Not too worried here about the viability of the Stargate, I think. We do have a probe out in the map as well, but this time around Boanaan's actually chasing it. I think he chased it a little last game, maybe, but he didn't chase it all the way. Stargate is in trouble because it can be hit, but with so many shield batteries inevitably going to be out, and a Void Ray as well, I was going to say those Stalkers can't actually kill it. They are forced to recall back home. The Forge will eventually die, but if 1 or 2 cannons can buy a little bit of time, help out against the Void Ray, then it might still be okay. Might be worth the investment. At the very least, it did help defend the cannon rush. Unfortunately, the gateway on the front like this means the Void Ray can just tackle it and chase down a Stalker as well. Shield battery seconds away from being done. Could have saved that. So this is the other problem. So I said the downside is that it puts you both on 1 basis, so it's fair game. But the other downside to doing this is that the wall off is extremely abusable by the Stargate. And I actually expect Boanaan thought of this, you know. I mean, certainly we know from the likes of was it Print F? Is he the one with the like Excel sheet of can rushing? We know that there are certain responses that are better to do once you realize how your opponent is responding as well. I mean, cannon rushing can be seen as down and dirty, and You can have your strong opinions, your strong negative opinions about cannon rushers all you want, but the ones who do it consistently, I mean, they are thinking about it. Absolutely. It's definitely strategy involved. It's not just low build Void Ray. And we can see that this is going very well. The cannon's about to go down as the Void Rays take absolutely no hull damage. The Forge, as I said, could be a target. The Gateway a target, obviously, as well. Azura did throw down a Nexus. Did the probe scout that? Yes, it did. So Boanaan was still chasing that around, and it looks like he may have even killed the probe. I think he did, actually. But he knows about the Nexus. The issue is getting down to the Nexus to harass it, which was an issue in the second game as well. I mean, I kind of feel like the second game was supposed to go Azura's way. We're heading into that similar direction. Blink is done. Second base is on the way. But this time around, Boanaan can cannon rush it, I think, more successfully. I believe that's what he tried to do in game 2, which is was talk about other things, looking at other things. The Stalkers went and responded to that, and then blinked back up, and as I said, that kind of started some of the awkwardness. This time around, the base of Azura is so far away that if he does commit to defending his own base, can he defend his main? I mean, he did get a decent number of Stalkers out to defend that, in fact. That was pretty well done. That was pretty quick, snappy, and now the Nexus can start building probes, but here it is. Here's the problem. Void Rays with alignment, and a little more spice to this. 2 Immortals got popped out by a Robo also placed in proxy. Literally everything that kills Stalkers quickly. And while Void Rays are glass cannons that need the help of the shield batteries, the Immortals a little less so. If they're targeted alone, they're going to lose out to 12 Stalkers, but they are not going to be alone, and Azura will fall to the cannon rusher that is Boanaan. But it's not just cannon rushing, like I said. I really want to give some due respect here, and they say that that was a nicely played out best of 5. I do believe that the second game victory for Boanaan did more than just put the point on the board. I do believe that it really unsettled Azura, but that means that he played out a well-played best of 5. Azura just trying to play the macro defense game. Kind of got, and I think we all just empathize with Azura right now. Probably has a lot more games to show, and his game to show against someone who doesn't cannon rush him all the time. That's my theory. That's my personal theory as to why people don't like cheese. It's why I don't like cheese. I think it's because it feels like it's the bully knocking over your playground. You know, your sandcastle, your Legos, whatever. It's like you're building up all these things. You want to get to the macro game. You want to actually use the things you're building up to. And then someone just kicks it all over. So I think we all can empathize with Azura. But fortunately, not the winner here today for the first round of the...